doing it remotely, huh?
He's got his laptop, yeah.
Oh, good, all right. There's the flag. If you'd all join me, we'll start off with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I'm going to start off with the selectmen's race. Normally the request has been made, a 2-minute opening statement, questions and answers, and then a 2-minute closing statement. We're going to try and somewhat hold to that today because at first I was like, well, I heard the ballot was light. I got the actual number of candidates, and we have a very, very active, which is great, democratic process. So go ahead. I won't really give you the clock like I would normally do that.
I am on
You're the one and only up here.
Good afternoon, everyone. For those that don't know me, let me get out of the hole first. My name's Humphrey Williams. I've been a selectman for the last 3 years here in town. And prior to that, I was on the budget committee for 3 years. I'm just going to keep this real short. I started working with the community about 7 years ago when the Milton Advocates Group. I've served on the planning board as a rep for the town, for the selectmen. I've been on the zoning board. I've been on the economic development committee. I was on the rec commission. So I've basically been on about every one of the committees and boards that have been there. My goal is to always try to do what's best for the community. I like to listen to what people have to say, what they're looking for. I try to work to create a team environment, which we've done with the budget committee. For those that are familiar with it, I know Peg and Larry and Bob are very familiar with it. I created spreadsheets for everybody's use so that it tracks all expenditures and projects costs and that forward out, and we've been using that now for the last 6 years. So it's become a very good standard to help us keep the budget under control, and one of the things that I'm extremely happy about is this is the 5th year in a row that we've been able to develop budgets that are under the default, so keeping things in check. Despite high rising costs, we've been doing pretty good at keeping things in place, so I look forward to doing this another 3 years, working closely with the other selectmen as the other boards and committees to make sure that we've got a group of people that work well with the community. Try to work with the staff and administration here in town as well to make sure that we provide the community what services we really need and a good, under a fiscally sound budget. So I'm open for any questions. Crickets.
Someone just asking one question, like, are you enjoying this winter?
There we go.
Virginia does.
Virginia, please.
Hi, Humphrey.
Hi,
Thank you
Virginia.
for your service to the town. You've done a lot. I had a couple questions related to the Conservation Commission. It's important for us as a commission to work well with the other boards, and I wonder if you think it's a good idea for the select board in appointing new commissioners to open positions to consult with the commission in that process.
I think it's good. Obviously, I know that we just opened it up because you've got some that are, going to be, wow. We've got some commissioners whose terms are expiring.
Yes.
I think getting input is important from everybody. It's not just the commission. I mean, I think getting input from the commission helps, but I know the board needs to make a decision based on people coming in and talking to the board as well. But I'd like to get as many opinions as possible before we make a decision.
Thank you. What was my next one? Oh, I wasn't at the deliberative session, so I didn't hear if you had an opinion about it. I wondered if you think in general it's better for the Conservation Commission in Milton to be appointed or elected.
I will tell you that's a petition warrant article, and as a selectman, I won't touch a petition warrant article in discussion because we're not allowed to.
I see,
So,
okay.
yeah.
Fine, then that relates to my other question too.
All right.
Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah. Your voice carries, but I was asked by the administrator to make sure everybody uses the.
Only because that's his way.
Fair is fair. And for the people at home, sorry for my loud voice. You mentioned you were on the Economic Development
Yes.
Board previously and possibly still.
No, and unfortunately, Peg will tell you as well that we didn't get anybody to continue with that. So basically, it was Peg and I at the end there, and nobody else was volunteering. We've had that problem with a number of committees and groups, unfortunately.
So then I assume the responsibilities of that falls to the selectmen.
The selectmen make as many of the decisions as we can. Budget committee obviously setting the budget for what we're looking for, but yeah. And the department heads have a big say in what we're looking to do.
What's your view on how to expand the number of retail businesses located in central Milton?
Well, it's in the center of Milton, it's kind of tough because there's not a lot of areas there that, for us to actually work with. Obviously, the good part about the center of Milton is it does have water and sewer, so that if we do have a business that was able to move into that area, it would be able to have that instead of trying to figure out how to get a septic system and well water into it, which has been one of the problems over on Route 75. We tried with the Economic Development Committee with setting up, interviews with various companies throughout town. I've talked with a number of companies, and all we can do is continue promoting Milton the best we can, keep things in check, and hopefully we can draw some business in.
Thank you.
All right. Anything else that's come to mind that you want to bring up?
No, I guess all I'll say is, like I said, I've been doing this now for a number of years because I really care about the community, and my phone number is on the webpage, so anybody that wants to reach me, I'm available. I do answer my calls, and I do get back to people if I can't answer them right away, but I look forward to serving the community for at least another 3 years, so thank you.
Thank you. Just to let you know how this process is going to go forward, I do know the school board. Craig, you're in the room. Andy has comments to read from Travis. Mike Bolio, the third candidate, I've texted Mike to see if he's coming today. We'll give that a minute process, but right now I'd like to move on to the budget committee because there's so many people. And rather than do it by the two-year race, or the one-year positions, the two-year positions, and the three-year positions, it's a total of 6, 7, 8 people up here. I'd like you all to come up at the same time, and that would be Bob Carrier, Griffin Parks, Stephanie Walden, if she's here, Catherine Ayers, Ken Robichaud, Michael Alsop, Mr. Brown, Mr. Larry Brown, and Mark Rasick. And I'm going to renege my seat.
It's a different view up here.
Seat for me. You got it, Larry? Okay. I guess we'll come back. All right. Mother always taught me ladies come first, so. Sorry. Mom's always speaking. I gotta do what Mom says. Again, same rules, 2 minutes opening statement. After Catherine, if Mike wants to do it, and then we'll just move left to right over the board, so go ahead.
My name is Catherine Ayers. I am on the ballot for the two-year position. I have been in the town for about 10 years, and I love Milton. I really care about the community, and have tried to be involved in various different ways. I am a fiscal conservative, especially being a senior living on a limited income. I've learned to pinch those pennies pretty tight. I have been active in the deliberative process since I moved here, and love this style of, I moved from a big city to a little town, and so I love the give and take and the ability to be involved in this community. But some things that I've noticed about Milton is that we are not growing. From 2010 to 2020, we lost over 100 people. And and we're halfway through the next census cycle. What's going to happen in 2030? We have increased our dwellings, both stick-built and manufactured home, 47 dwellings, which is 2.4% in 5 years. So I wouldn't expect that we're going to grow much at all in the 2030 census. So we're pretty stagnant. But our town budget is growing. And from 2021 to 2025 budget, we have grown 28% in the town budget, town portion of the budget. And if the salary increase that is on one of the warrant articles goes through, and I expect it will, knowing Milton, the increase over,
You're approaching 2 minutes.
okay, will be 10% over last year. So I feel that the Budget Committee plays a very important part. I feel that the budget is it touches everybody's lives, and I would like to be a part of it.
Michael?
Do you want to move to me?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm going to hopefully introduce myself, right? I haven't met a lot of you. I want to start with a little bit about who I am, where I come from, how I got here, and I'll try to make this 2 minutes, so I'm going to talk really fast. So, my name is Michael Alsop. You may know me as the Christmas light show guy from Springbrook Drive. If you've ever driven by, that's me. You may know me as the 4-time state champion chili cook from Milton, who represented us at the World Championships this year in Myrtle Beach, which was great. You might know me for a variety of other reasons, but my goal today is to help you get to know me as a candidate for both Planning Board and Budget Committee. I'm running for both. I was born and raised in Texas in small towns, farms. I moved to New Hampshire after the Mother's Day floods. I came here to respond, to potential dam failure. All of you remember that here in Milton? Yes. So I was with the Red Cross and traveled with the National Guard up and down 125. I thought this was the most beautiful place that I'd ever been. I come from Texas, it's flat. I went to school in Iowa, it's flat, right? There's nothing there. But I thought this is the most beautiful place ever. And when I came back to New Hampshire, and my wife and I started looking for a place to live, we decided it had to be Milton, right? So 4 years ago, we bought a house here. 2 years ago, we had our daughter here. We care a great deal about this town, about our neighbors. We've made lifelong friends here. And I think that we have a lot of things, right, to discuss. And there's not a ton of younger representation. I'm 40. I know I look like I'm 25. I get that a lot. In this process, in these conversations, and we're talking about the future of our kids, right? We're talking about the futures of our families and our neighbors. And I really think that there needs to be more of us out here, right? More people running. We should have out the door here a line of people who want to run and make a difference in this town. So, still have time left?
5 seconds.
5 seconds. It's pretty good for a mental timer. It's pretty good.
Yeah, excellent. You'll have, if you think of other things, there'll be time to do it on
I have a whole nother page for other things.
on a closing statement. All right. Mark?
My name's Mark Rasick. I've lived in the Seacoast my whole life. I've lived approximately 20-something plus years in 3 of our neighboring towns. Dover was my primary, Somersworth when I could afford my first house, and Durham because I was looking for the water. And over the period of growing up in Dover, I went to parochial schools. Because I was raised by a single mom, I spent 3 years in an orphanage up in Maine. Again, parochial, but it was I'm going to say it was a fortifying and a life-changing event. And then we came back and continued through the Dover school system. In the process of finding my forever home, I chose Milton. When my mother was a single mom, I spent a lot of time with my cousins, and they had a camp up here on Milton. So I spent most of my summers and some of those formative years jumping off the bridge that doesn't exist eating at Russo's and vagabonding around town when we weren't supposed to be, but we would get places on the little 12-foot aluminum boat with an old 5-horse, and we could go all the way up the Salmon Falls as far as we could go, hitting a few rocks along the way and do some trout fishing, and this has always felt like home. So for my forever home, I chose here. In the same venue that Kathy was talking about here, that the tax rate that we have, $13.59, it's not terrible. But when you combine what it is, or I should say dissect what it is, we are now spending about 53.7% of the total taxes on education between the state and the town. And we're not getting a whole lot for that. So I'm interested in not only the municipal budget, but guaranteeing that we spend our money as wisely as we can. We don't want to neglect needs. At the same time, we might need to prioritize some things from time to time. And I'm willing to invest the time, effort. I've spent years as a volunteer working food pantries. We ran the food pantry in Durham for 20-something years. I'm used to giving. Now that I'm out of my old environment, I have a new home, new place, and I need to stay occupied or my wife will kill me.
That's a good way to wrap that up.
Right there.
Go ahead.
Hi, everybody. I'm Griffin Parks. I've lived in Milton for the better part of 25 years. I left shortly after high school into Farmington, but I've come back. I grew up in Milton Mills. I went through the Milton School District. I'm a graduate of Newt High School. I work full-time at Stratford County Sheriff's Office, but I made my start in public safety here as a firefighter in Milton. I still work as a firefighter in neighboring communities as well. I've worked on budgets on a municipal level as well as in the private sector throughout my career. I was in restaurant management as well, so I'm used to being given an airtight budget, saying, here, make the most of it. Working through staffing shortages, supply chain issues, and COVID-19 was a big one. So I'll just keep it short. I hope to expand my knowledge and continue learning with this position. I feel confident I can hit the ground running and learn quickly and do my best to provide back to the town I grew up in. Thank you.
Thanks, Greg. Mr. Brown.
Hi, Larry Brown. Talk about the budget and talk about the impact of inflation and talk about the costs that we can effect. We are not ever going to be anything like Rochester moving north on Route 11. We lack the infrastructure of natural gas. We lack the road structure. We lack the topography. We have been very successful in getting small businesses to come on site in the 58-acre parcel here. I, like many others, was on the Economic Development Committee, and it's a hard sell because of those defects. That's the topography and the background of the tax base that we have. Resources. The Metropolitan Price Index coming out of Boston or the national runs about 3% per year, which means if you have a flat budget this year, you actually have a 3% loss. And the idea that you can tighten a municipal budget, third-party purchases for sand, the 80-20 salt mix, which is now, I think, running, I was hoping for Billy, he's not here, it has been as high as $60 a ton.
It's more than that now, Larry. It's up
Okay.
around 88 right now.
Okay, thank you. So that is an expense we can't control. You can't tighten your budget on those expenses. That's something that does not come through from the comments of other people about how we have to cut the budget. You can, for your own budget, you can buy a Market Basket cornflakes. When you go to pay your tax bill, the County of Stratford only takes Wheaties. It's that simple. Those expenses we can't control. The school budget came in at 6% down. We are looking at massive disruptions of federal monies. For example, there's a division of the EPA which is the National Center for School Infrastructure. They have grants out there for indoor air quality. They are being hit with a disastrous hammer that is already starting to impact inflation. I've worked, this would be about year number 16, both as member, as chair. It is the important work of the town. Thank you.
Thank you, Ed. Bob?
My name's Bob Carrier. I've been on the budget committee now for 14 years. And I've served as chair, I've served as vice chair. And to me, when I get a budget, town budget, I have several papers. I look at 2 years prior to that one, a current budget. I'm also looking at the proposed budget. And I do the same thing with the school. I'm looking to see the town as a whole. What are the needs? And I look at the department head's proposed budget, and I go through it all, and I'm looking for something that is reasonable. And when I look at, if the budget is reasonable, I will accept it. I've always looked at it that way. Then if there's a line that does look a little too expensive, I gotta have more information. I have to have them come back. Please explain this some more. Why is it this way? But, and as for the schools, as far as I'm concerned, I look at last year's budget, this year's this current budget, and the proposed one. And I go line by line. I even look at the revenue reports and the grants. And if I feel that the budget is good, reasonable for the taxpayers, I will accept it. Otherwise, I'll go in and say, well, can you change it? I won't tell them what lines to change because I really don't know. The school board has better control over that. But- and that's about it.
All right, thank you. Okay, first question. This one was requested earlier to bring it up. On the school boards, or the school warrant article, petition article number 9 is the default budget should it be determined by the budget committee? Starting with Mr. Alsop, if you can just say yay or nay and why.
So I do think that there should be some consideration from the budget committee, knowing everything that goes into the town budget. I do, so yay on that. I think there should be some collaboration, but I also think that, it's a very complex issue. So, more voices, more opinions, better, I think, honestly.
Okay. Mark?
I'll second that and say yes. I can't say that I'm a master at all the line items in the school budget or whatnot, but I can think of many questions that I would ask. Like, for instance, we're spending $100-something thousand on a new math test. I don't know whether or not that math program that they're going to incorporate has a track record somewhere that's better than what we're currently achieving here, and or whether or not the one we're currently using and have paid for has achieved better elsewhere. I mean, those are the kinds of questions that I think a budget committee should ask whoever it is that's presenting the need.
All right. Catherine?
I also agree that the budget committee should be involved in the default budget because those are the things that you can't touch. And the budget committee needs to know all the numbers, and I believe that they are involved in the setting of the default budget for the town, so it seemed like the same, there should be equal, you do it the same way, that there should be an understanding by the budget committee as to what is part of the default budget. I mean, obviously, personnel are a big one.
Hey, Chris, before you move to the next one,
Yes, sir.
just to answer that, the budget committee does not set the town's default budget. We do.
Okay, but, okay.
I would say yes, but obviously it should be looked into thoroughly, and we should thoroughly collaborate with the other boards as well, especially the school board.
All right. Thanks, Griffin. Mr. Brown?
This is budget law. The default budget is the amount of appropriations as contained in the operating budget authorized for the previous year, reduced and increased as the case may be by debt service contracts and other obligations previously incurred or mandated by law and reduced by one-time expenditures. The school district, the superintendent, the director of financial services, with input from the special ed and the rest, have their hands on the pulse every day by day. The budget committee comes in once a month. And the budget committee has no power to change statute.
Thank you.
No, I disagree. I do not think the budget committee should go into the default. We don't have all this information, like Larry was just saying, we don't have all this information. I'm more focused on what the current budget is and the proposed one. I think that is enough.
Okay, thank you. Questions from the audience? Budget committee. Mr. Panish.
Can't get there from here. Can't get there from there. I'm sorry for the accent or lack thereof.
That's how the budget committee feels sometimes.
So I think we can assume that under the current federal government, we are going to see a decrease in funding from the federal government. And I want to know how you guys think that you'll deal with it. Are you going to raise taxes in an intelligent way? Are you just going to cut? What? Go right down the line.
Mark? Yeah, I don't mind
You want to
starting.
go first?
Sure.
I'll let you have this one.
Well, I think there's an assumption there that has no evidence yet. The fact that the federal government has obviously going to face a restructuring of some type doesn't guarantee that what New Hampshire gets from the federal is going to be reduced. There's a lot of people running around not working. There's a bunch of numbers of programs, grants, and whatnot that the federal government, as we're suddenly getting in every headline, is spending in places that they shouldn't be spending them. And I don't see that it's not just an efficiency move to cut the government from misspending and reducing their overhead to then yield in a block grant type lump to the towns and the states what they need to do that would probably be equivalent, and they could still save money by getting rid of the federal side of it that doesn't educate anybody. We know that the Department of Education's results since Carter have been reduced performance in our overall. We got to change. We got to do something different. And I'd rather you, as the school board and the state and New Hampshire, deal with our own kids more than someone that lives in God knows where, in the suburbs of DC. And I'll let that go.
Catherine?
I think there are a lot of changes in the air, and most of them would impact the school budget rather than the municipal budget, I believe. I don't know that. I know that the state asked something from Milton in the municipal budget, but I don't think that they offer, am I correct? We don't have funding for the town.
Correct.
So I hesitate to answer on a hypothetical question because we don't know what's going to happen. I mean, there's talk about eliminating property tax. What are we going to do then? You know, there's a lot of what ifs. I don't know. We'll have to take it as we go, and everybody in the country will be in this situation together. We'll have to work it out.
Griffin?
Yeah, if there are proposed cuts like that from federal funding, obviously we'd have to look into it. My biggest thing would be working with everybody else on the board and the selectmen, and again, I think the budget cuts would probably go to the school, unfortunately, from the federal side, so work with the school board on that. My biggest thing would be making sure I'm advocating for the general baseline of services that we have, such as the schools, public safety, and general town government, just making sure I'm doing my part to ensure we keep that afloat as appropriate.
Mr. Brown?
Okay, there are two things going on. One, the federal workforce is about 4.3% of the total budget. There are about 640,000 federal employees. About 15% of those only work in Washington, D.C. The rest are scattered out through a multitude of public agencies, state by state by state, and assigned to various agencies. As for example, EPA, as I mentioned earlier, having an impact on childhood asthma and TB in Stratford County. We have high rates of those each. So those are things that have to be addressed. To bring in as a dog whistle the suburbs of DC, which just might happen to be black, and to disregard the impact of COVID for the last 5 years is not an answer to the question. The answer to the question is to find out how much money will be coming through multiple agencies right now to do the protection of special ed kids through the Department of Justice. You have to have an interface in place so that a child who is at risk from the decisions of a local school district can get justice through the Justice Department. If the Education Department is dissolved, that ain't going to be there. What can we do for our local budget now with the budget we have? Next year is the disaster. Our tax rate and our budget is in place right now. Next year, what is going to happen is you will have fewer teachers hired. You will have increased class sizes. You will have impact on the costs of education of the disabled. We have all hell will break loose as Medicaid and the reimbursement rates for the states, whether it's Alabama or Wyoming, are impacted. There is no way to answer the question. We are a blind man being led off a wharf by a dog.
All right, Mr. Carrier.
I do not. I mean, I don't kind if we have to, but only, my idea is to not cut it all. Give the services that we can afford. And as for the school, we'll have to find another way of keeping it from getting out of, what I want to say here. I don't want to touch the schools much, but if we have the grants, what we got to do is find a different, alternate way to put the education, because our students are the future. We don't give them what they need, they are not going to succeed when they graduate. That'll be a waste of time for them, and not very good for the town or anything. Oh, okay, you want me?
No.
Okay, I'm all set.
All right, Michael?
Yeah, I get to go last this time. That's awesome. So I'm an MBA. I work in the healthcare sector now after my time in disaster. We're already facing budget cuts, financial cut. We've been, right, for quite some time. And I can tell you that it's not as drastic as Larry described. We don't feel like we're falling off the edge of things. We're trying to constantly innovate, always innovate. Find ways to streamline, find ways to get the heart and soul of the program at a reduced cost, right? Keep the tenets, the values, the things that we hold dear, but also make changes that impact the budget. And I do a lot of that right now with hospitals, health systems. It's my job every day. I do this all over New England with systems everywhere who are facing the exact same challenge, which is, they're going to take it harder when we get more budget cuts, Medicaid, Medicare, all of that's going to go. So I don't know if all of you know, but there's a clock on Medicaid and Medicare. It's like 2027 right now, 2026 maybe, that it's insolvent, right? That there will be no money left. And so that's constantly a challenge in healthcare. And it really does come down to your ability to innovate, to think outside of the box. What can we do differently? And that is what I do. That is my job every day. That's what I bring to this committee. And yes, I don't know all of the details. None of us do about what's going to happen. But I can tell you that I'm an innovative thinker, and it's my job. And I'd love to bring those skills to the town.
All right, that's good. Are there questions from the audience? Back row.
So I know that we were just talking about kind of the hypothetical of what could happen with the current administration that's going on, but several of the candidates did talk about how they were already unhappy with how our tax rate in Milton has gone up over recent years, both at the town and the school level. So instead of talking about hypotheticals, I would love to know, hindsight's 2020, this is the budget we're living with right now. What would you have proposed if you had been on the budget committee then, to cut, to restructure, to innovate in some way, so that today our tax rate was a little bit less? I would just love to kind of get your understanding of what possible services or programs or staffing could have been changed so that today we have a lower tax rate and impact. Thanks.
Mr. Moderator, will the floor yield for a point of information?
Yeah.
The tax rate in Milton actually hasn't gone up. The tax rate has gone down. The valuation of properties, which only gets calculated every 5 years, has gone up. And a lot of the properties according to sources, were undervalued previously. So in actuality, the total taxation that bills some people are going to be paying has gone up, but in fact, the tax rate itself has been decreased.
Good point. Do you want to answer the question first, or do you want to pass? Woman's prerogative.
I've thought a lot about this before I signed up for this committee. I try to sit in where I feel like I can make a difference. I have noticed in the period of time that I've been here that almost every department in town, in the town budget, there has been increased personnel. And I've also noticed that back in 2020, the school budget, the portion that the town pays was 60% of the amount, and the town was 40%. In the proposed budget for 2025, the school budget is 53% of the total, and the school budget, the town budget is 47. So you're seeing the school budget is maintaining, and the town budget is what's increasing. So I would look at the town budget and specifically at the personnel.
All right.
Yeah, I'm not sure of anything I could confidently say I would have done different. I think in Milton, we have, again, a great baseline of services, but we kind of run with not the bare minimum, but with much less personnel and less funding than some other towns our size. So again, I can't confidently say what I would have changed, but I'd say looking at the town budget compared to the school, maybe there's some variations in there, some money that could have gone somewhere else, but that's something that I have to look into.
Mr. Brown.
Would the moderator restate the question?
No, because I didn't. Well, if I can paraphrase the question.
For sure.
The 25-26 period budget is already set. But if you were on the budget committee this year, or in past years, and I think you've been associated with it in the past years, what things, specific areas, would you suggest they look into tightening the belt on? Is that?
Yeah, if you believe that they should have.
If you believe.
Let's try to deal with that. One, Chapter 32 budget law says the budget committee's responsibility is to review expenses and set out a reasonable and prudent costs for the ensuing year. That's the year that is coming. If you go back to 2020, if I remember correctly, that is the time at which we were looking at, Nick is not here, about $3 million for the fire station. That had, some would say, unconscionable effect on town spending. If anybody has had a fire, if anybody has needed an ambulance, I would say that it was worth spending more to get more service. The semi-police chief is here. For the last 5 years, we've had brutal experiences in trying to maintain FBI standards for the size of our community and police support. If you keep it down where it is and you hope everybody behaves, I've only had one home invasion and they didn't kill me, that's someplace you can cut. If you want to deal with the school budget, you don't you don't do unnecessary maintenance, you run the tires until they're bald, you disregard repairing any of the roads, and you take your 20-year complete write-off for the road repair to get by on 10 and hope that you don't get a suit against the town that you knew and did nothing to repair. Moving out to 2027 without a detailed budget in place is a good question, but impossible to answer in detail.
Bob?
The town budget, I look at everything there is in here. And one thing we got to try and do, keep the personnel we have here. There's been such a turnover in this town. Public Works, in here, we've lost some good people because we're not paying a decent wage. And that would be one of the things that does raise the cost a little bit. But if you drop it down, people will have to do one or two things. Take less services, and we can do it that way, and just about what best we can do with the town, because I believe the town is where it should be. And as for school, you got special ed. It only takes one student to come in there, and you will see a skyrocketing cost on that line. And I've experienced some of those that they were way over budget, and it dragged everything else around with it. So it's very difficult. But I can only tell you, you got to give the students what they need and the teachers with the tools they need. And as for the town, you can go with less services. It's very hard to go into where we can go with this. Unless what Larry was saying, don't do any more roads, just let them rot until they're really gone. And there's other things we could take out, but we'll pay for it later.
Michael?
Yeah, so, great question. So in regards to what do I feel like we could have done differently, for me, I feel like transparency would have been like the main thing, right? It looks great to vote for a new town hall. It looks great to have a new ambulance. But we have more warrant articles coming up to support maintenance, to support revolving funds, to support those things, right? If there was a trend that said, this is going to be what you pay now, but in 2 years you're going to pay this, and the year after that, this, and you knew what the total amount was for that, would you still say yes, right? So transparency in a lot of the things that we vote for, that we decide on, understanding what long-term costs look like, also evaluating our assets as a town. What are we getting for those assets? Where do they go? I'd like to know that information. What's the offset when we buy something new, when we do something new? I really think that, we have to, let's see here, full picture of the future. I think long-term impacts, again, I'd like to know 5 years from now, what are we still paying for, right? I know that there's a lot of leases on equipment in the budget. I've seen a lot of increases. We're dealing with inflation, so we're talking about rising energy costs, a town hall that's smaller to a town hall that's bigger, heating costs, all of those things continue to happen, and those are ancillary costs we didn't talk about when we voted, right? Things we didn't bring up, things that we didn't discuss, and that is what's missing, right? If that transparency was there, right, when we had that conversation as voters, we might have made a different decision. And so when you ask what I think we could have done differently, that's the main thing I think we could have done differently.
Mark?
Not having the lengthy history here, but I think I see a couple of things that we're all kind of talking like we were Board of Selectmen people. I mean, as a budget committee, you're dealing with the number that the revenue provides based on the state set rate and the required assessment numbers. So yes, we're dealing with the marbles that are on the table. As for direction setting, maybe transparency from the budget committee to the Board of Selectmen, to the planning board or whatever, to shine a little light or give a little input as to what is the effect of having a third of your town under conservation so that you limit your tax increase? Or what is the effect every time there's a new proposal? What's the long-term effect going to result? Whether it's the school-related facilities, whether it's the curriculum, whether it's the head counts. I think maybe the Budget Committee is best prescribed as dealing with the eggs that we have in the basket, but every once in a while, we can assist and/or shine light on those things that we think are going to affect what the impact is going to be on the number of eggs, as well as, you know, there are two sides. There's dealing with the money you have in your pocket, and there's also looking for a better source of revenue. What kind of assets does Milton have that they can generate some assets besides just, you know, beach passes? There are other things that Milton has. Some of them require development, some of them maybe require some legislation or some town warrant articles, but, you know, maybe we can sell water. Maybe we can do all kinds of things. Whether it's, you know, we don't have Moose Mountain, and we've got limitations in downtown. We've got a railroad that's 10 feet off the water, cutting off the water access. We've got no parking at all of our vacant downtown retail shops. There's nothing that the town can do immediately with those problems. You know, you got a $1.8 million 5-acre piece that abuts the beach right now. Is that something that should be looked at for a future revenue source for the town? Turn it into a more resorty kind of summer revenue source. There are things that could be looked at, but that's not the Budget Committee. That's the three leaders that we have elected that have to kind of lead us a little.
All right. Noting that the time, and I've gone through my list, I still want to get to the planning board and the treasurer's race and the school board race next. So I've asked 2-minute closing statements here, and then we'll move on to those 3 races.
Thank you. Again, I'll keep it short. I think the town of Milton has a lot of great things going for it. We have a fantastic baseline of services with the schools, public safety, town government. I'm asking for the vote so I can do my part to ensure that we keep the baseline of services, but improve on it while being fiscally responsible, of course. I hope to serve on many other boards and committees going forward in the future. So again, I like to make my start here. And again, I ask for your vote on March 11th.
Thank you. That was the shortest 2-minute. Now we go. Mr. Brown.
Thank you kindly. August of 1997, I was up scraping paint on the townhouse. I have tried to pay back for getting out of childhood alive. That builds community. Things that protect your own wallet and don't build community give you a fat wallet and a dead. We are past the time when we had John Wayne and a Bowie knife between his teeth and taken on the evildoers and winning. The reason we have more staff is that government is complex. I have had a wonderful time. I will arm wrestle Humphrey for the number of committees I've been on. It is a pleasure and a deep source of satisfaction to be able to give something back to Milton. My father was the mill hand's son, and public education took him to Dartmouth. I hope that you respect the work that both administrations, town and school, have done of making livable, effective budgets for the continuation of community. I think it is unconscionable to take a school budget to claw back $800,000 and say You find it. Anybody see the film, Sophie's Choice? Tell me which kid you're gonna kill. But what do I really think? Thank you kindly.
Thank you, Larry. Bob?
I always tried to make sure that services were never interrupted. I did my research on the budget for the town, and I do my research for the school. I feel that they have done their job. If I didn't think they did, I would have found it in all the reports that I look at, which I look at detailed reports, a lot of them. And I look at the school, I look at every single line. If there's something that stands up, I'm gonna nail it right there. I'm gonna say, okay, I need more information. I am a data person. I'd like to see the data. And I want to make sure that the town does not lose services. There's a way to do it. It's just I need something in front of me to maybe to find it, and I think I could. The school, we're dealing with students that they're gonna be starting a new life. We need to have them current, and we got to provide for them the best we can. Special ed, I'd like to see those students progress, to have some type of life. But unfortunately, sometimes they need everything, and it throws the budgets all out. But if I feel a budget for the school is fair, I will vote for it. If I say the town, I will do it as well. Because listening to the budget presentations, that's where I get some of my questions, and I look at my sheets, and that's where I will also find questions there. The school has been very forward with everything. I brought a sheet with me that shows me the overview of the budget. Here is the highlights of the whole budget. So, but I look at that, but I also go through everything thoroughly. If I get questions, I'm not afraid to ask. And the revenues, I've been looking at those very, very carefully. I found a few things over the weekend, which I'll bring up at our meeting Tuesday. But if I've done my job, then I would ask for your vote. And that's the best I can do.
Okay, thank you. Michael?
We continue to do the same things, operate the same ways, to listen and explore the same ideas, we can expect the same results. Right? That's what we can expect. And right now, we're in trouble. Turbulent waters are on the horizon when it comes to cuts, when it comes to finances, when it comes to taxes. People in this town are worried about losing their homes, being forced out of this town that they grew up in, that they've loved, that they love as much as we all do here. Those are things that we have to figure out, things we have to address, right? And that takes every single committee, whether it's related to budget or planning board or school board. Everyone has to be involved in that process. We have to stand up, right, and come together. And so I really do think that that's how I see my role here, to innovate, to give ideas, to help find new pathways forward, extra things on your desk to look at, for all of us to look at, to explore, to talk about, right? I think I'm a person who enjoys researching, devising strategies, and I'm a person, and forgive me for saying this, who gets shit done. That's what I do, right? I get shit done. We need something done, give it to me. I'll do it. Let's do it, right? I don't enjoy talking about things. I enjoy doing things. It's not a lot of conversation with me. It's more about what can I do to help? How can we fix this? Let's put 20 different, ideas on the table and figure out which one of these is going to work to improve our town. And so I think that serves the budget committee. I think it serves the planning board, which I'm also running for. And eventually someday, if I ever get to the point of the knowledge of Humphrey, then I'll run for Board of Selectmen. But the point here is that we need focus on the future, fiscally conservative solutions, right? Innovation, and to challenge complex problems. If we had the solution to the problems that exist for this town, we'd already have solved them. But we don't, right? That's why we're sitting here now. So my goals as a candidate are on this pin right here. You're welcome to take one if you want, so you can remember what those are. But it says focus on the future, fiscally conservative, innovation, and challenging complex problems, because I honestly feel like those are the tools and the strategies that we need in order to make it through. what's coming.
Mark?
I think we do face a little bit of belt tightening in spite of the fact that we may already be on a diet. Fiscal conservative responsibility of the Budget Committee, I think, is a given. What we can do, whether it's to try to stimulate perhaps the revenue side for relief, or whether it's just look for a more innovative ways to do the same job for less. That's the question and answer period. You've done a good job all these years going through it line by line, and you deserve all the credit you can muster for that. And all I can say is, as a relatively new member of town, I'm willing to bear that burden, to ask those same questions, to look at things reasonably, and to also be respectful to those, like my neighbors and other people that I know in town, that are facing the decision of where do I move to because I can't afford my taxes. So revenue side, tax side, efficient spending. I know I kind of kicked on the school a little bit because they are 54% of our tax budget. At the same time, I do believe in education. You may or may not know that we did I do a scholarship for college with the possibility of up to $5,000 over the course of their 4-year career. So I'm interested in making education important and trying to do it with the carrot rather than the stick.
Thank you. With that, we'll wraps up. Oh, sorry, Catherine.
One
Ladies
more.
last and
Ladies, first, last, and
Almost got inside. Ladies, Catherine, go ahead.
I am pleased, I signed up for the Budget Committee because there were so many vacancies. And I know it is a thankless task. It's not an easy job, and, but I would like to be part of the conversation of I do watch the Budget Committees on YouTube. And I'm aware of the discussions. I think asking questions is important. It's an important part of every board member to look at things, consider things, and ask questions if you have them. It's an important way to innovate and to maybe solve some problems that we see emerging. And getting involved with the select board and the department heads, and I mean, this is a whole team that runs the town. I'm pleased that there are so many new faces that I'm fairly new to town. I still have people to know, and I was pleased at the number of people that have signed up for this committee, and I know that you as voters will pick the ones that you want to represent you.
Thank you, everyone.
Mr. Moderator.
Yes, sir.
Point of information. A detailed review of both the town and school budgets are available by the presentation of each of them. You can come in person, and in addition to what Catherine mentioned as the televised, YouTubed, the formal presentation of the budget in detail is available from town and school both. Look for it.
All right, thank you. With that, we're going to move on to the school board race. There are 3 candidates. Thank you, everyone, for participating here. James Mike Bolio, Travis Corriveau, and Craig Pearson. Travis is not able to attend. Andy Robinson is going to be reading his statement on Travis's behalf.
I'm sorry, what did you say about the last one?
Travis Corriveau is not present, and Andy Rawson is going to be reading a statement.
Okay, all right, good.
Andy, do you want to come up and read the statement? Like, as part of the opening 2-minute presentation. All right. Why don't you can let Craig go first, because he's actually present in the room, and then you can read Travis's Out of respect to those that are present, okay? Go for it.
2 minutes, huh?
Well, 2 minutes, yeah.
2.5, since it's
Is
half.
Travis is about 2 minutes? Okay.
So my name's Craig Pearson. I've been here since 1988, something like that. I don't know, 1989. My wife's giving me that look because I should know these things. I'm not good with those kinds of details. We built our home here, and we had our 3 kids here, and they went through the school system. And in that time, after we first kind of moved here and built our home, took my first job in education, which was at Newt High School as a special ed aide. That was informative. And then I used that experience to start as assistant teacher, teaching, and have been in a multitude of educational environments since 1989. I got my master's in the 90s while working private at a private school, but it was for students that school districts just didn't have the resources to really work with. So it was this interesting mix of a private nonprofit environment, but that was working with students from around the seacoast that would be sent there, and that was called the Spurwink School. They're out of Maine, and they're not New Hampshire anymore. And excuse me, I'm losing my voice here. Over the years, I've been asked multiple times. I've had people say to me like, "Why don't you run for school board? Why don't you try to help?" I've always had the same answer, and I was honest then. I'll be honest now. In my career and trying to move into running programs and designing, implementing programs, I never felt like I had the time, and I have been on a lot of committees, and I've served on different boards in different educational capacities, and nothing, it's infuriating to me because I think it's just so disrespectful. If you're gonna show up, show up. If you're gonna commit to trying to help a group of people and understand something, then you gotta go all in. And I knew I didn't have the time, and I knew it wasn't a focus that I wanted. In the last couple of years, in owning and running a program based out of Boston, we've gotten to a point where I feel like I can devote the time and energy to it. I'm not a person that does things halfway. So my pledge to you, if you vote for me, is that I am going to be involved. Lastly, I've learned enough, and I've worked on enough school boards in other districts and in other places where it's not. I don't view it as my job as a school board member to design, implement, oversee educational practices. That's not it. You hire good people, and they do that. And when you hire good people and get out of their way, I think Steve Jobs, somebody more intelligent than me, came up with that. You can do really well, and those programs can do really great things, and those schools can really thrive. It's difficult to know how to do that. It's difficult to listen, quite frankly. I'm a very verbal person. When I started to really listen in educational environments that I worked in, I realized, okay, to advise and guide and provide that oversight, I can do that. I can do that when I focus on really listening and paying attention. That's my shtick.
Good shtick. We'll stick with that. Andy, I'll yield the floor to you.
Okay, good afternoon. So Travis, unfortunately, this meeting was canceled prior to weather, and he has prior engagements. So he emailed me this and asked me if I could read it into the minutes for him, and Chris is going to allow it. Thank you, Christopher. I apologize for not being able to join this weekend's during the meet candidates. I have been a member of the school board for just over a period of 3 years. During my time on the board, I participated in negotiating the teacher's contract, researched information pertaining to Prospect Mountain and Alton Central Schools, and participated in many other events the district has hosted over the years. As a member of the school board, I feel it's my duty to set regulations in line with New Hampshire RSA's. The district employs fiscal responsibility in ensuring students to have a safe, welcoming learning environment. I do plan on watching and recording and post answers to your questions on our Milton Home, our Milton Mills Home, and Milton, New Hampshire Community News Facebook groups. You may also contact me with any questions. My contact information can be found within the school board section of the SAU 64 website. Thank you once again for attending the meeting, the candidates, and have a great day. Travis.
Thank you. So this is a difficult opportunity. I would normally say, let's take questions, but one of the other candidates couldn't be here today, and another one, as Andy said, Travis Corvo, had a prior commitment. But he did point out that if there is a question from you, he could answer it on. So are there any questions from the audience for this candidate? Sir. Be gentle on him, because he's the only one here. Did I say what you were thinking?
Absolutely.
Okay.
You're always saying what I'm thinking, Chris.
I despise all human life. No, seriously, knowing that having an educational presence in a community is vital for both long-term success of the community and increasing the growth in it by drawing in new, younger families. What is you and the remote answering candidates' ideas about how you will keep the community school in place, how you will evaluate the curriculums that are going forward and the changes that are necessary to keep this school system present and functioning well?
Yeah, it's really tough right now because I haven't been involved. So the real struggle, I think, when you're kind of signing up for something like this is like, you got to go all, like I said, I've got to go all in and really talk with people and try to figure out. I think that, to me, the superintendent's office, the superintendent position is just critically important because the school board, that's the one position that you really can affect. You know, the board, looking at nominations, hiring people, there's a few low-grade dumpster fires throughout the school districts in New Hampshire, and they're pretty much always traced to the superintendentships and superintendent's offices, and there's disconnects there in how things are run. I think, you know, my answer would be to really get to know the administration, to really kind of understand who they are, get a sense as to what their strengths and weaknesses are, what's working, what's not, and try to get to know the teachers. I mean, I think it was always tricky when I taught, you know, school board members in the school. You kind of be like, oh, okay, what do they want? But I think what they want, in my experience now, is to try to understand what everybody's doing, and to be able to then kind of sit and really work with those people around how do you do that? As somebody said, the town, I mean, in the stagnation and what's predicted, it's more important than ever, you know, to try to really work with people and figure out what do you do. I mean, people look, they don't move to communities when they're like, oh, well, I read about that district and that's not exciting. So it's important.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Mr. Brown?
Now, he's the one you got to tell to be gentle.
Well, isn't why we use a clock for 2-minute openings?
Said it now.
This will be gentle, and it is a specific question for the candidate we have before us. Would you say that during your time as a trustee for the New Hampshire Farm Museum, your willingness to stand outside at 1 a.m. in the morning of February, about 14th, at a burn pile, is a good example of your willingness to go all in and commit to a task?
Yeah, I at the risk of, I don't know, the fire peas here, I like to, fires are kind of.
You had a permit?
We did. I remember somebody that knows me from my Shortridge days, we lit some pretty impressive ones up there, and I don't know if we had an actual permit. But that's a different thing up there now. No, I mean, absolutely. I mean, that's why I haven't been involved. And it's weird, you know, it's like I turned 60 and it was like, oh my God, it's midlife crisis. And I just thought, I mean, I literally, Larry, like those times, I haven't been involved in years. And I hate that, you know. I'd seen Jacques and Annie up at Mackenzie's, you know, and saying to Annie, like, God, I gotta do something. She just smiled at me, you know. So yeah, you do what you gotta do. I'm under no delusionary thought process that this is not going to take a lot of time. Like, I would not be sitting here if I was not willing to put in the time. And as I talk so much, it is about listening. You got to put the time in to like listen to people and get a sense. There's a lot going on in education. I mean, not even talking about any of the other budget stuff and the changes. I mean, you just look at what kids are going through. You look at what families are faced with. You look at the choices in education. I mean, this is complicated. It's multi-layered. And people are going to have to talk to each other, and they're going to have to listen to solve any of these problems and have the kind of school that you all want to have. It was great for our kids. They've all done really well. My wife went to Newt. I mean, she's done well. She puts up with me. I mean, how can you not count that?
That's a good way to wrap. Did you want to do a final?
I did have a question.
Oh, sorry, Don.
Don Diamond. I really dislike that this question is even necessary to be asked, but it's a two-part question. If anyone wants to know why you're curious about it, you can go ahead and take a look at the August 26, 2023 school board meeting to see it. I want to know if you will commit to having our schools comply with state and federal laws, and if you will commit to being civil in the school board meetings. That's very important because it sets an example for the children in our community.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the laws are the laws. I mean, I think that where I see people get in trouble is that they're looking at RSAs and trying to interpret like meaning and effect. And I think the one thing that you can do as a school board is you can be very clear with your superintendent. You can be very clear with your legal counsel. I mean, in this town in the budget, you look at where legal counsel falls. Like we live in a very litigious society. Let's not kid each other. So part of me is like, I've never been afraid to know exactly what the legal position is and to have a clear understanding from the superintendent and the assistant superintendent and all of your special ed coordinators, your out-of-district sped coordinator, special ed coordinator, right? Like, you got to get straight answers. And my goodness, if you can't be civil, then what the heck are you doing? And I'm a very middle-of-the-road kind of guy. Like, I believe consensus and a commitment to that is critical. If I don't agree with someone, or if I think like, wow, I don't really understand that. That's my version of being excited about something. It's like, I'm going to say to you, well, I don't really understand that. And then let's help me understand that. And we may still not agree, but if we disagree, it's not going to be because we didn't listen to each other and try to understand what the heck the problem was. Then there's not a lot of that. I mean, I don't know. I don't want to sound preachy. Like, people shouting at each other, it's nuts.
Thank you.
We do have to move on. We have two more races I'd like to cover. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
For Planning Board, Michael Alsop and Karen Golab. Then I'm going to do the Treasurer's Race. Catherine Ayers, Kenzie Campbell.
Only two of us?
Victoria Finlayson. Yeah, Michael Bolio couldn't be with us today.
Oh, my God. No, I'm short, but not that short.
Yeah. As always, ladies first, so.
All right, I'll try and be real short, because otherwise it'll be a long day for everyone. My name is Karen Golab, and I've lived in Milton for almost 25 years. I'd say in the past 10-plus years, I've been involved and served on either one committee or board or another. For the past 3 years, I've served on the planning board. Prior to that, just briefly, I was on the Conservation Commission. I chaired the Casey Road Land Protection Committee, and I also chaired the Local Government Efficiency Task Force. So in addition to being on the planning board for the last 3 years, I've also served as Milton's representative to the Stratford Regional Planning Commission. And last year, I served on the Capital Improvement Committee as the planning board representative. So after serving on the Conservation Commission for 7 years or so, I ran for planning board. I enjoy working with the individuals on the planning board. We've worked very hard the last 3 years. Part of it, planning board is kind of a two-part responsibility. One is looking at our zoning ordinances and coming up with changes that we feel are needed to those ordinance. And the other part is obviously listening to applicants when they present a development plan. In both of those processes, I've always tried to listen to everyone, whether it's an applicant, an abutter, or other planning board members. I gather my facts, I do my homework before we have public hearings, and I try and find common ground. But at the end of the day, I'm here to serve the residents of Milton. It's a very unique New England town. We'd all love, the silver rod, to come out of the sky and have all this development that's gonna, resolve all our tax issues. But it's a balance between maintaining the character of Milton and seeking out responsible development that can help us. So I've tried to play that, that middle ground, and I think we've done an excellent job in the last 3 years, and I'd like to be involved with that board and do it for another 3 years. So,
Thank you.
did I make it?
No, well, 2.5 minutes, but
I get 2.5 minutes now.
you do. Just 38 seconds.
All of this in 2.5 minutes. Ready?
Go.
Okay. So I know that the planning board right now is talking about future-facing initiatives, and I really like the idea of being a part of that, right? The future of the town. I'm very respectful and appreciative of the stewardship and everyone who's worked on the planning boards and all of the boards in town and what they've been able to accomplish. I'm thinking, right, again, from this idea of what can we do, and I've talked to a few of my neighbors who have mentioned like town-owned parcels that they can add to their own, buy them from the town, take on the tax debt. Can they, expand their property? Can we do roadside businesses, right? Can we talk about food trucks? Can we talk about other businesses maybe that aren't hindering our, rural charm? They're only there for a short amount of time. And also, with a lot of the things that I do in the chili cook-off world, the barbecue competition world, it's about like, how can we get them here, right? We want them here. We want to bring businesses to town. We want people. I mean, the last one that I was at, there were 3,000 attendees, right? Like, how could we get those 3,000 attendees to come to Milton for this to be, something that we do here? So I'm always thinking about like ideas like that, business development. What can we do to bring people to this town? How can we get people to see how beautiful it is? If they could do what I did and drive up 125 and just fall in love, they would, right? But we need to get them here first. So I'm always thinking about this, from the perspective of like ecotourism. I think in the Facebook group, I still got time. The Facebook group the other day, I hate talking about Facebook, but I will. Someone said, what can we build in this town? Like, what can we do to have something to do, right? Like, there's nothing to do. And I was thinking about, like, ecotourism, zip lining, like the mountain coasters, right? The tube roller, things that take advantage of the natural beauty of the town that we currently have here. All of those things fall into this, like, planning discussion, right? This board discussion, all of the things of, like, what does the future of Milton look like while still maintaining the charm, in the community that we have here. So I thought a lot about that. I think really it's around, and there's 2 minutes and 4 seconds. He turned at me there. So basically, again, it's about the future and thinking of innovative ideas and things that I could bring to the planning board. So that's why I'm running.
Thank you. No, that's
I cut 10 seconds off this whole time.
Wow, you saved us 10 seconds.
There's there's 4 more pages of stuff.
I know, so you did a lot of homework.
I'm summarizing in a way you people cannot understand. Long amounts, yeah.
So we
All
can
right.
understand.
Just a reminder, there are, even though Mike's not here, but there are 2 positions open for the planning, 2 3-year positions, so multiple candidates can be elected. Questions for these candidates?
Ask this one, Virginia.
I'm Virginia Long. Just a very quick question for Michael. Have you attended any planning board meetings or watched the live stream?
I do all of the virtual, so I watch the selectmen meetings, the committee meetings, the conservation. So you and I have actually worked together before on my own backyard. I don't know if you know that. But we've sent emails back and forth about which trees I could take out, how I abutted the conservation easement that's in our neighborhood in Springbrook Estates. So I've actually...
I remember now having a very quick exchange on that.
That was going to be another thing I was going to talk about that I had to cut out, by the way.
I worked with
So I'm just, yes, it's a very proud thing for me. But yes, so I have watched a lot of those. I do see what the future initiatives are. There's a lot of updating to do here, as you know, right?
I guess I asked because I have attended a lot of planning board meetings in my role as Conservation Commission Chair. And my understanding of what the planning board does not include brainstorming ideas for the town of Milton.
I know.
So I guess I was trying to get at what is your understanding of what the planning board does?
I think a lot of what I'm saying probably belongs maybe at the selectman level, right? And thinking of ideas and things like that. But I do think that those perspectives of like what can we do differently apply to any board that you're running for, anything that you serve on. So I do think that the process is really great with the planning board now. I do think what they do and how they attempt to update this to something that's going to work for us in the future while maintaining the charm that we have for this town is important. But I also think that diverse perspectives are important. I don't know if that answers what you're asking.
And one of my understandings is even on the Conservation Commission, my understanding is one of the things that's very important is familiarity with all the ordinances. It's very dry reading, but it's very important for the town.
I read this whole thing.
And can you tell me any of it?
I can tell you a lot of it. And in fact,
We've actually got to move on.
I'm sorry, Chris?
We've got to move on. We can't go into the minutia of the master plan at this date.
Virginia, can I just give you one piece? This is a commitment to do something, highlighted multiple times. Commitment to do something. I love that about the master plan, and I would support it 100% if I were on the planning board.
You want to comment, Karen?
I would say the master plan is the start. That is owned by the residents. It is our guiding principle of what we want Milton to be as a town. From there, we drafted our zoning ordinances, which I kind of define as our guardrails for development within Milton. How far do we want to go? Those guardrails kind of give us a guidance. And that's part of what the planning board does, is on occasion, there are good development projects that are brought to us that maybe we have to allow to go a little bit outside of the guardrail, but not this far. So doing the homework, understanding the zoning ordinances themselves, those are the planning board's guardrails when someone comes to them with a project. So I say I'm pro-responsible development, and I mean that. We need development, but it's got to be responsible. We've got to maintain the character in accordance with our master plan.
All right. Questions, closing statement?
Okay, it'll be the same as before. I'll make it very quick. I think the key points here are on this button, right? This is what I'm focused on, so that applies here as well. It's innovation, it's the future. It's thinking of diverse ways to tackle problems, to have conversations, to help solve complex problems, and to at least be there, right? To think about the future together, to learn from you as well, and carry a lot of what's happening in the planning board and the budget committees forward in a way that I think is responsible, right? And that serves our future. I have a 1.5-year-old daughter who's crazy and at home napping right now, and I'm going to get there and she'll be awake. But, right, she is what I think about in everything that I do, everything, right? The budget committee, running for this town office, my neighbors, this is what I'm thinking about in all the decisions that I make and the questions that I ask. And questions has been the theme of the day, if you've not heard that from every candidate that's up here. I have a lot of questions. I don't know everything. Definitely would not pretend that I do. There's a lot of learning that comes from this, but I think the future requires that, people who want to learn, and that is me.
Karen?
I'll be very quick. I look at anything I do as wanting to give back and help the residents of Milton. And I also look retrospectively and say, have I added value not only to, applicants, but concerns of residents who have brought them to the planning board? And I believe I have. I always listen. I take the time to listen and actually hear people's concern, and I try and work with them. Because I feel like, that is the position of a planning board member, to help them navigate through a complex, set of zoning ordinances. But that's what I'm here for as a planning board member, and I think I've done that, and I'd like to continue doing that for another 3 years.
Thank you, Rob. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
You got like 1 minute for your next one there.
I know. Well, they're gonna have.
You went fast.
You did. You did excellent. For the treasurer race, candidates for town treasurer, Catherine Ayers, Benzie Campbell, and Victoria Finlayson. I believe a couple of our candidates are here. And just to be clear, Catherine is also running as the school district treasurer. So, while they're separate positions, it's the same kind of task. It is the same task. Ladies first. Of course.
Catherine Ayers, and I had no idea what a treasurer did. And last year, my term as the school board member expired, and so I was happy that the school board asked me to be the treasurer for the school, because the treasurer became the new business manager. And I said, I asked, what do you do as treasurer? Because I didn't want a full-time job. I'm retired. I like my time. I have projects, and it was explained to me, and I said, well, I can do that, and no problem. And it has been no problem. It's been a delight. I'm familiar with the people that I work with, and so it's been a happy task for me to do. And so then I gave some thought to the town treasurer, and I know Mackenzie has served for several years, but I didn't, there never seemed to be anybody running against him. So I thought
Challenge.
I thought I'd give him a challenge.
Why would it be so boring?
Since I know now what a treasurer does. And I'm very comfortable with numbers. I have a master's in business, in finance, and so numbers tell me stories. I really look at numbers. But one of the main things that I found that a treasurer does is a treasurer the reason it's a separate position from the business manager. I don't know is that what it's called in the town? Business manager, the one that writes the checks.
Finance.
Finance, okay. One person writes the checks, and the other person signs the checks and makes sure that everything is flowing correctly. They're two separate positions because they work as a check against each other. And I've been a little concerned because the present treasurer is the husband of the business manager, and I just don't, fiscally, that isn't the best opportunity for the town. But it's because Mackenzie's been willing to serve. So I said, well, I'll give it a try, and maybe a new face might be a good idea. It's
Yes, I'm Mackenzie. I go by Mac. I'm 32 years old. I have 4 children I've raised in the town of Milton since I moved here 10 years ago. At that same time, I started by running for town treasurer at a young age. Probably I was 22. At the time, I didn't get it. Larry had great feedback for me, so the rite of passage. And the school board reached out and asked me if I would be interested in being their treasurer, not unlike Catherine. So I've carried the same mantle. When I finally went out for the town treasurer position, there was a lot of work to be done. The previous treasurer acted with a little bit of archaic technology, some strange banking practices, and overall the system wasn't functioning very well. So a lot of our escrows were put into penny stock funds, which wasn't yielding the highest amount of return on the funds. So we had to close those out and transform them into one large account system through TD Bank, which I worked with the vice president of government banking to do. In doing so, we yielded a higher amount by compacting our interest daily in order to pay for our banking services on their own. Not only that, I negotiated a contract when Farmington closed their TD Bank that allowed us to receive bank pickup services here for free, and I lowered the mileage in my treasurer's budget in that same time period. So I've only ever lowered my budget. I've only ever been an apolitical, fiscally conservative ward of your money. And I've worked with many in this room, as well as many different boards and town administrators in transitioning their signatures through different things. I'll clarify that, yes, my wife is the current financial manager, and she does a great job.
And just to clarify, I was a previous administrator, there were never any issues between the fact that husband and wife, treasurer.
You should see what she would do to me.
Yeah, I have to admit, it was probably harder than, well, it's enough said. Questions from the audience? Andy?
I have had the pleasure to work with Mac. I know Catherine Ayers. My name is Andrew Rawson, for the record. Mac has done a wonderful job for the town of Milton, have saved us a lot of money in bonds that we've reached out and got. And I just want to know, moving forward into the future, how would both of you try to save as much money as you can with future projects?
First,
Yes,
again?
ma'am.
Okay. The treasurer actually is not a decision maker. The treasurer for the town would work under the guidance of the select board. The select board actually approves weekly all the checks that are written. I just sign them. Or the treasurer just signs them. There is no decision making as a treasurer.
Not so much. You're kind of wrong there, but that's okay.
I'll address the comments. So I think it has two answers. The primary responsibility of a treasurer per RSA is to safeguard the district's funds. And that does not include choosing how those funds would be spent. However, there are more prudent banking procedures than others. And listening to our financial team here, the Board of Selectmen, the business manager, our vendors like TD Bank, we have to work together to make those decisions in the best interest of the town, and that's in any situation. And not only that, there's, Catherine's right, we don't just sign the check, but the check itself requires 2 signatures from the treasurer and the town Board of Selectmen members.
Other questions, comments? No, you don't have to raise your hand.
I'll just stand up and ask the question then.
Oh, okay.
I've forgotten her first name, Smith. She was the finance director.
Pamela.
Is she still in the district, or is
I
she?
believe she's still in the county.
In the county, not for this, okay.
She's the county treasurer. She's the county treasurer.
My understanding, no, not Pam Arnold, there was
Anna
a,
Smith, you're
Oh,
thinking.
Anna
Oh,
yeah,
Second
I replaced Pam.
okay, fine.
Yes.
When the treasurer leaves, I believe an audit is required. Yes?
I think that's the town clerk, Larry. An audit's required annually, but I don't know. That belongs in my RSA now.
If you were to be replaced, an audit would not be required of any work that you have done.
That's not true. We've been audited the entire time, and we're audited annually. And when a town clerk
Every year
switches,
as an operational function, the town does have its own audit.
Correct. So there would be no particular cost should one person leave and another one come on board. The
Correct.
audit is specific to the title.
To the town's,
Thank you.
the audit that's done annually is to the town's fiscal position.
Thank you, good
They always
information.
take a year after. Some of them take up to 2 years. Thank you. Any other questions? Final statements then from the candidates, so we can wrap up.
I know the drill.
I was pleased that it wasn't just me that is challenging the incumbent this year. I'm disappointed that Victoria isn't here because I don't know her. But I'm happy that there are some new names on the ballot, and I'm eager to serve the community. The skills that I'm running unopposed as a treasurer for the school, and the same skills that I use there are going to be used with the town, but I know that I have some things to learn because I'd be new.
I've taken great pleasure in serving this town over the last 7 years as town treasurer, and in any other capacity as well. There's a lot of great individuals here that give a lot, to do a lot for a little. And I want to keep that practice going. I want to be here, not unlike today. I was under the weather, and I got a call kind of out of the blue, like, remember candidates night? And I said, I can't be on my couch sick if people are going to consider me for a vote. So I had to come here and state my case. And I hope I've done that reasonably. I hope everyone can make a great decision at the ballot box and be happy with their candidate chosen. And I will accept the results regardless.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Just in closing, Griffin is here in the room, but he is running also for a position on the zoning board. You're the only candidate in the room. I don't think you want to debate yourself, so I'll give you that. And with respect to the other races, there's like one candidate for a race. So in an effort to keep my wife and family happy, we're going to wrap this up. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Good job.
Have a button for anybody that wants a button here. What's your last name?
Say hi.
Everywhere I go, I walk.
For him in here. Anyway,
Let's throw that in there. Just in case.
Hi, Brian. How are you?